So we'll talk about tank and piping. Please take as much notes as you can because a lot of the code will ask you about clearances for piping and tanks because they find it very important. And that is chapter 3 in the book. This book, where was this book made? What code? It's for New Hampshire, right? It's Nora is in New Hampshire. Philip. Nora is in New Hampshire, so they have their own certification that does not apply in Massachusetts. So when you try to revise the code for Massachusetts oil burners, go to the CMR 41 and it will give you the codes that is here. And make sure you get an updated version. So go on Google and look for oil burner technician license or codes, CMR, Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulation, and look for 41 and get the numbers correctly. I will show you where they are online until we finish. But for now, we're gonna do some general stuff and tanks and piping. So oil regulation has to be according to NFPA 31. That is the national code, and we said the national code should be followed as the minimum. You can have more than that, but not less. CMR 31 dictated that the maximum size of the tank for residential is 660 gallon. So that's one tank. That's the maximum that you can have in a house.
For an oil tank?
Yeah. And that's above ground. 660 gallon.
Just it's above ground?
Yeah. So write this down. Locations, where do you put the tank? You can put the tank inside, you can put the tank outside. However, it has to be placed on solid ground in the bottom floor. So you're not gonna put an oil tank in the second floor. So usually it's in the basement. What if you don't have basement?
Outside?
Outside or in the garage?
It's outside, you have to insulate it, so it's,
You don't have to.
don't have to.
You don't have to insulate it. But it's different tank. Put outside has to be different code, different material. Usually it's fiberglass.
Oh, or are you gonna get into the material, like?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get into it a little bit.
And you
So-
have to have it on concrete, right?
Yeah. So it has to be the bottom floor. Concrete base. If you put it in the garage, just if you want to think with your intuition, what would you put? What would be different if you put it in the garage or if you put it outside? What's in the garage besides the tank? Huh? Garage. So what do you have to put? Barrier. So if you come one day and the brakes don't work and you hit the tank.
Kind of like
Barrier.
going around the tank here.
Yeah.
right?
Because we have forklifts, we can drive a vehicle inside the shop, so we have barrier around the code. You have to have a barrier. The barrier also have to be big enough that if the tank leak, it will contain all the liquid. So you have to have must have guards. Okay. If it's inside building, basement, boiler room, or garage, it could be inside.
It can be in
bottom
the
floor.
same room as the boiler.
It could be, yeah. Usually the basement, the boiler is there.
Oh,
And however, good question. How far should it be from the boiler? 6 feet. 5. 5 feet.
No
5
less.
feet. Huh? No less. 5 feet from any combustible material. So it's got have to be located. Of course, this is not always the case. People just put it in there, then later on they build stuff around it. They put a wall, they put whatever. It has to be there, exposed by itself, 5 feet from everything else. And the tank usually feeds the boiler by gravity. So it should be gravity fed. You will see in some installation that the oil lines go up. Let's say the tank is over here, it will go up through one of those, this is what are they called, I don't know, forgot.
Not rafter, no, not beam, I know what you're talking
You know
about.
those, yeah. So it goes up.
Joist. Floor joist.
I think so, yeah. You put them then it goes down. So what happens in this case? It's going against gravity. So you need to have some kind of loops. You're gonna make a loop, go up, make a loop, go down. So the loop can act as anti-siphoning device, so the tank does not pull back the oil. However, if the tank completely empty, you have to vacuum the oil all the way to the burner, otherwise it's not going to work. And mostly if you go up, probably that's 8 feet. So the pump cannot pull 8 feet all the way up from the tank. So basement, again, the pipe should not be buried in the concrete. If it does get buried, it has to be sheathed, because copper reacts with concrete, could eat it, and if it leaks, we're not going to know. So the best way to do it, if you see in the back shop, there's a line and there's a guard on top of the line to protect the pipe, because again, copper is very soft. If somebody steps on it, it's going to bend and the flow going to be really not sufficient. So boiler room, basement, or garage, you can put it in the garage if you want to, or you can put it outside. Outside has to be above ground. Again, what is the maximum is 660. You can have 2 tanks next to each other. What is the capacity for both tanks?
275 each or something.
No, 660 gonna be each. So if you add it together,
330. Oh, no, 660 each would be 1320.
1520, that's the maximum. Of course, you're gonna put some more for the piping, so you can have 2 outside, or you can have 1 outside. Outside is different than inside. Outside tanks are more expensive than inside because they are insulated. Also, they are colored differently, usually it's light color. Inside doesn't make a difference. And outside they are exposed to the element. There's a lot of snow, a lot of heat, bugs, so you can't put the tank outside. Underground tanks. You can have an underground tank, that's for big apartment complex. Underground tanks are different than above ground, they can be bigger. The maximum for underground tank, or any tank, any building, is 10,000 gallons. So that's a trick question. They'll tell you what is the maximum you can store in a tank. That's 660 each or 2. But at any building you can have an underground tank that's 10,000. So if they tell you the maximum tank size in any building, that's 10,000. And you have to have a permit for that. And it has different code. And it's underground, 10,000 gallons.
Is it safer to do it underground?
Huh?
Is it safer compared to inside and outside?
I don't see why.
No.
It's just more capacity.
Made of fiber too, right?
It could be made of a lot of things. It could be made of steel and also galvanized. Fiberglass is very common.
How far underground?
Huh?
How far underground do they go?
At the top, I think, should be at least a foot or 2 feet from the surface. It's there, and it has its own code. We'll look at some of those as well.
Is it for residential as well, 10,000?
Yeah,
Seems to me like too much.
if you have a big apartment building, that's residential / commercial as well. So you're not gonna be able to heat a big building filled with 6 or 7 apartments going 660. You'll fill oil every day. So you're gonna get 10,000 and it's going to be underground and somebody can come and fill it. And also for gas stations, this is big underground tanks. And it's varied, and usually they are cylindrical, either fiberglass or steel. I don't think it's underground is gonna be completely steel. They have to galvanize it very well. Because again, underground is really tough to inspect because you don't see it. So it has to be done, and there's some inspection comes all the time, and you have to verify the quantity to make sure there are no leaks, and so on. Any questions so far? Okay. Inside tank advantages: low cost, they're very cheap. You can get a tank for around $300, fiberglass. They have longer life. Why?
They're not exposed.
Because they're not exposed like weather and things
Yeah.
like that.
Sun reacts with fiberglass, heat. They also have uniform temperature, which is very nice because the temperature in the basement usually is kind of uniform. And again, we said that when liquid get heated up, it starts to stratify, which means the top is going to be hot, the bottom is going to be cold, so it becomes layered. For this one, it's going to be uniform temperature, and you do not need to heat the tank, and you also do not have to deal with the tank with the oil crystallize. And what was the pour point for oil? Pour point
17 degrees.
17. Cloud point
20 plus 20.
27 to a plus or minus 20 above the pour point. So 27 to 37. That is the crystallization point, and when it becomes kind of not see-through. What is the flash point? 100. What is the ignition point? Excellent. You're good to go. Viscosity. We talked about viscosity. Viscosity changes with temperature. The hotter the liquid, the less viscous it is. We talked about car oil, engine oil. When the car is cold in the morning, you turn it on. First 5 minutes, the RPM is high, and the engine is off because the oil is very viscous. As the car warms up, it becomes very lighter, and the engine runs smoother. That's why also they use different oils for different regions. Here, because it gets really cold, you need something that's not going to crystallize very quickly in the cold weather. Question?
You had mentioned a permit, is that just for underground tanks or all tanks?
They all have to have tank.
Huh?
They all have to have permits. So somebody have to inspect your installation before you can turn it on. Who was that?
Marshall.
The fire marshal. He has to come to your house and inspect your, well, he's not gonna come personally, I'm sure he is very busy. I mean, every county probably have one. So probably they'll appoint somebody and make sure they get all the checklists and test everything. So this is called a swing joint. What is the purpose of that? Did anybody do plumbing before?
Where is it?
It's between tanks.
I feel
Between
like it's
tanks?
too, if for example, there's a tank that it doesn't like, touch. This is a tank that goes here and it doesn't touch whatever is near it.
Okay, but why can't we just go straight from one tank to another?
Is that how it's installed like that?
Yeah, something similar to that. They
Probably
put
through,
like,
So,
a
like-
wall or something.
they put like a loop in
So
the,
you can
in the
hook it
tank.
up so one empties before the other, right? Or they both get emptied equally?
No, but actually that's a good point. The main reason for having swing joints, called a swing joint, is because, again, we said metal expands and contract with heat. Over time, even if it's 2 millimeters, that will crack the connection between the tank and the pipe. So the swing joint will give it some kind of leeway, so it will contract and expand, and the pipe will take the contraction and expansion, not the tank. And if you look usually for rust, where would you see the rust? Usually around the welding part, the connection, not the pipe itself. So, at least 5 feet from the burner. The vent has to be at least 2 feet from any other opening. So that's the vent for the tank. The tank has to have a vent. Is the vent inside or outside?
Outside.
Outside. The filling pipe and the vent pipe are outside. And the vent has to be 2 feet away from any opening of the house, being a bathroom opening, a window, door, any kind of opening. Because again, you are going to vent some kind of fume from the diesel. So you want to be outside. There's a vent pipe and there's a fill pipe.
2 feet away from it.
Any opening, yeah.
Even the fill pipe?
Huh?
Even the fill
No.
pipe, or doesn't matter?
No, doesn't matter.
From,
House opening, because they are concerned about contamination, ignition, and so on. Size of the fill pipe and vent pipe, which one do you think will be bigger, the vent pipe or the fill pipe? Huh?
Should be the same.
No.
The vent.
No, the vent pipe is bigger. So if I have, I'm gonna draw a tank here. This is my tank. So this is vent. Usually the vent pipe has a whistle, because as you fill, you can tell that it's venting. Because if you're not venting, what's happening?
Creating a vacuum.
Excellent. You build the pressure, and whatever crack in there or leak or whatever might push the liquid out. So you want to be atmospheric pressure. So if you start filling and you don't hear the vent, you should stop and go and check. And again, before you fill any tank, go and inspect and look. And not a lot of people do that, especially in cold weather. They just go there and just fill and leave. Do your due diligence and check the tank and check the pipe. And not every vent pipe is for the tank. There are some stories where people actually filled what they thought it was a fill pipe, but it's not. It was just a pipe for the dryer or something, and the basement was filled with 600 gallons of grease.
That guy got fired.
That's a big case. You know how many cases we said is the EPA case? 5 gallons of oil being spilled, that's an EPA case. Of course, if you report it, I don't know how does it work, but that place, that was a big case where a guy just filled the whole thing and left. If you look outside the building, there are the fill pipe for the tank and the vent pipe, and it says diesel on it. But again, the guy should always come and check. And again, when it's cold and there's a lot of cold and try to fill so many houses and doing the procedure, it gets a little bit too much, and people just neglect that to verify. Make sure it's valid. Make sure it's vented. Tank valve, the outlets coming out of the tank. Swing joint, that's a swing joint. Must be used at the elbows because again, any expansion or contraction between those two, if they get closer, the pipe will just tilt and take the
For the vent?
elongation. No, that's between the two tanks.
Oh, okay.
Between the, if you have two tanks.
If you have two tanks. Filter. Filter is the code. You should have a filter coming outside the tank. There should be a filter. It looks like a car filter. And every time you go and do a fill once a year, you should go and take out the filter and change it. It's very inexpensive. Did anybody ever change a filter in a car? Same way. Twist it, shut off the valve, take out the filter. It's gonna drip a little bit. Have a pan with you, and change the filter.
The oil filter or like?
The output.
Oh, okay.
Tank gauge is preferred but not necessary. So there must be a gauge on the tank, usually in the top. If you are going to have a glass or see-through gauge, the code requires you that if you don't use that gauge, you can. However, if that gauge breaks, there should not be any leaks. So if you're gonna put a glass gauge and you're gonna have the product go through it, it's fine. As long as if it breaks, it's not going to leak. Let's say you have a tank inside the house, you have some fancy gauge in it, made out of glass or see-through plastic, and something hit it and it broke, it should be okay. It should not lead to a big leak. Must stand on concrete floor or legs, either inside or outside. So if you're going to put the tank outside, you're gonna call somebody and they're gonna make a whole platform for you, for the tank to be even and level. So concrete floor or legs for the tank. Must be on the lowest level of the building. If that makes sense. I mean, if I'm gonna have 600 gallons, each gallon's around like 7 pounds, that's a lot of weight. And also, if it leaks, you don't want it to go through the entire building. And again, the code calls for the minimum. If it's your house, I will put a barrier around the tank and a containment and some kind of insulation, so in case there is some kind of leak, it will catch it.
That's why I was asking earlier, can the underground be a little safer, because if it did leak, it's not gonna leak inside the house, or.
It's even worse, it's gonna leak in the ground. You don't want that.
You don't want your house either.
Yeah, but they find through the roof.
It's not even about that, it's gonna stay in the ground for a long, long time. And again, we said, if it was pure crude oil, it's okay, but it's refined thing with a lot of toxic stuff in it, so you don't want that. Thermal shut-off valve, what do they look like? We've seen some of those on the board for electricity, Firematic, it's called Firematic. It's a valve that will shut down the oil supply if the temperature reaches 165. If there's a fire in the basement or a high temperature, it will melt and shut off the supply. So there must be a shut-off, thermal shut-off valve. They're really inexpensive. They only function once as a safety to cut off the product if there's any fire in the supply. Secondary valve, thermal valve at 12 feet if there's a lot of distance. That is for paramedic as well. That will shut off the power. If you have more than 12 feet length going through the oil line, you're gonna have another one. Okay. So this is a picture from the CMR for 2 tanks connected together. So you want to have some kind of a swing joint, which you have a pipe and an elbow, not completely direct one to another. And if you are going to fill at one tank, you're gonna have the vent in the secondary tank, because you will fill 2 together from one filling pipe. You're not going to fill each one individually. Tank 1 and tank 2. This is the supply. Shut off valve so you can change the filter. The gauge in the second tank, and a plug. So if you look at the tank that we have here in the shop, it has a gauge on top of it. We'll go at the end of the class and I'll show you the tank and how it's installed. Outside, above ground, why would you do that? If you have no space, no basement, no garage, and you want to use oil, you can put it outside. It has to be, again, at least 5 feet from the building. There will be more problem with moisture, cold, and dust. And every time you take out some oil, you're gonna replace that with what?
Air.
Air, and air has moisture in it. Tank is made out of solid material, solid cooled faster than air. Eventually you'll have condensation on the walls, and you'll have some water inside your tank. So they have more problems, in a way. The location below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to be when we start having less than the required pour point. You can add 25% blend of kerosene or some other material that's provided by the local fire department. But 25 is the maximum. You don't add more than that. It doesn't have to be kerosene. They have some special additives, but make sure it's approved. Again, knowing what you know now, you know that there's different flash points for different products, and you know that we need certain fuel to go through the boiler. You cannot just put anything in there. Like if you have a diesel car, engine car, and you put gasoline in it, probably you ruin something in it, and vice versa. And it did happen a lot that they actually had to change the fuel nozzle for the diesel that do not fit in your gasoline tank, because it does happen a lot, more than you think. So, think about that. Any questions? Got this? 25% maximum?
Well, yeah.
Good?
Do you have to filter out the kerosene like after winter, or could you just let it
It
run?
shouldn't matter.
But first you mix it with it in the winter. If you're really in cold areas like in Maine or New Hampshire, probably some fuel will come to you pre-mixed.
Okay.
They call it winter fuel. Winter fuel for that is gonna be pre-mixed. So make sure that the fuel is pre-mixed. Don't go and just add stuff. And probably the oil company that's supplying oil for your house that will tell you this is already all set. Don't mix anything with it, or they can give you additives. Okay. So the piping going from the tank to the burner has to be copper. PVC protection is very required because you're touching concrete. Don't leave it there. So it comes a pipe with PVC on it. Never bury a copper pipe. Has to be always above ground. If it's buried, it has to be different code. It has to be galvanized, has to be paired and certified and pressure tested before you buried, but for residential, the code asking for not buried pipes.
It
But
was
if you
code
do,
at one point.
yeah, if you do, it has to be a different kind of pipe, it has to be sheathed, and it has to be insulated. Question?
What's a copper pipe with PVC protector?
It looks, it's a copper pipe, it has some kind of insulation around it, it's usually orange color. I think we had some, I'll show you some in the shop. So it has orange, it looks like a cable,
It's
like, you know how the wire is like
Yeah.
insulated, same thing.
That's not the burial one,
No, no. All copper fittings should be flare. That's why we practice doing flare joints. So you're gonna use flare nuts and flare connection between pipes. No press fitting or soldered fitting. You're gonna do flare, and connect, so no soldering, all press. Why? Because leaks, they don't want you to have leaks, and they also don't want you, what could happen with the soldering?
That's what I was gonna say, how would it be, what else?
What else? Soldering over time, soldering is rigid, right?
Yeah.
Over time, with vibration, it can fall apart, you can have some leaks. Press fitting is tight, it can take some kind of leeway. And every time you take out the pipe and put it back, you are actually changing or bending the pipes. So I think the idea is soldering will eventually lead to leaks. So flare, so we are going to go with the flare tool, flare, nut, and keep connecting all the pipe together and bending. So all the way from the tank to your burner should be flare fitting. No soldering or anything like that, or press. Maybe I use Teflon. Sometimes you might need to use some tape if the thread is not fresh. You don't have to, but never use Teflon because Teflon doesn't react with oil. If you have to use paste or tape, there's some specific tape for diesel. Use pipe size of 3/8 minimum. That's the one we used for the lab. We used 3/8, that's the minimum for oil. Any less than that, I'm gonna have issue with the flow. So that is the minimum. What is the size of it? Let me show you.
Is the oil piping similar to the refrigeration line?
No, it's not.
It's not the same kind of copper, is it?
Same kind of copper, different thickness.
Oh, yeah, the diff, yeah.
Let's see. So this is the minimum size, which is 3/8. And this is the flare nut. So this is how you connect the pipe, but you're not gonna do any soldering. It's gonna be one pipe, one line. That's why it comes in a big bundle, big loop. You go, do the bending, make sure you put protection on it, and at the end you connect pipes using flare nut. So this is the minimum, but you can have it up to half an inch. Again, small pipe, high resistance, big pipe, low resistance. You want the flow to be low resistance as possible, coming all the way to your burner. It should be tight and leak proof. So when you go and do your inspection, look at the pipe, make sure there's no condensation, there's no dew around it. You can tell over time, dust will gather on the leaky joints. So check that out when you do your inspection. Threaded connection require a pipe compound that is oil resistant. If you have threaded connection at some point between the tank and the pipe, you might want to have some oil compound that will be put in the thread so it will be tight. And do not use Teflon or any kind of tape because eventually it will react with it and it will lose. Good?
Okay.
Seems like enough for today, huh?
So underground tanks, they must be 2 to 3 feet deep, as we mentioned. So that's from the top of the tank to the ground surface. Suction return should be installed 3 inches of the bottom of the tank, and it should be possible to switch those from suction and return. I'll show you a picture.
So, for these underground tanks, I'm assuming they're below the burner in the building. Now, would
Yeah.
the pump be included with the tank, or would it be installed underground next to the tank, or would it be inside where you could
No,
replace it?
there's usually no pump. I'll show you in the picture how this look like.
Yeah.
So let's look at that quickly. If you have your book,
Not really.
this is a picture that shows you the water accumulation in the tank. And this is how the sludge will look like inside the tank if you empty it. And this is what Ian was asking about. This is what it looks like, underground pipe. If you have a long run, you have the tank here, fill pipe outside. And you have to bury it because there's a long distance. You're gonna use C3 pipes. There's the sheathing and there's the PVC. Because again, copper is very soft. So the PVC or the metal will be to protect it from impact when you bury it and put the cement on it. It goes all the way up. And if you look, it's gravity fit. The only issue you might have is the pump has to have some kind of suction, which is not a lot, and 1 or 2 feet.
Oh, so as long as like the top of the line at the burner is below the bottom of the tank, you shouldn't need any kind of pump.
Yeah, because if you think about the oil pressure here, gravity wise,
Yeah.
it's here until the bottom, you have your
Yeah, okay.
gravity fit there. Question?
And are bigger houses, do bigger houses tend to use oil more often?
It depends. Doesn't matter on the side, it depends what's available. Let's stop the video here. I'll just show you.